point properly and biblically. And a lot of our Arminian friends struggle, for example, to give, I think, the strongest biblical refutation of the concept of the Eucharistic sacrifice, because they don't have a clear, consistent biblical doctrine of atonement to begin with. When you look at if you're a synergist and you look at Hebrews 9 and 10, and Christ enters into the heavenly place having obtained eternal redemption, if you're a synergist, well, attained the possibility of eternal redemption, but not really having obtained it, because as long as you're a universal atonement proponent, all Christ does is make men savable. He doesn't actually save them. So the synergistic Arminian has collapsed on the central issues to begin with. And as such, I really believe that Reformed theology provides the consistent, only consistent, biblical, strongest critique of the Roman Catholic system. I was certainly thinking about that a lot as I was teaching through that section again in Zurich just week before last. Just how awesome that material is. There in Hebrews, well, really 7 through 10, that whole section. The ephapox, hapax, the once for all sacrifice. It's beautiful. And I think that Reformed theology properly understands that, makes application of it, and hence can make a very, very strong criticism of the Roman Catholic position, which I've been trying to do now for a quarter of a century, beginning in those first debates in August of 1990. It's been over a quarter of a century, with Jerry Matitix. Back then, yes, Catholic Answers, he was with you. Just thought I'd remind you of that. Anyway, so once I finally got a chance to listen to what was said, I was just like, this statement is a non-issue. It's searching for something, and if you have to look for something to criticize the papacy, I don't know if you've done your homework. I mean, there's plenty of stuff there. I mean, Francis is going around and he's celebrating Mass and he's giving indulgences and so on. There's plenty there. We don't need to be making stuff up. We don't need to be going to stuff that really isn't an issue, that can be plainly and easily understood in a way that, because Rome doesn't go around saying, well, the cross was a failure. Yeah, Jesus wanted to do something else and just blew it. That's not what they say. They say it was a success, that it did what God intended it to do. The problem is that it doesn't actually perfect anybody. That's the issue. And in fact, if you miss that, if you go after this other statement he made, you are distracting from the real issue. You're missing the point. You're giving the other side ammunition. You are working against yourself. It's just... So what I did is I posted something on Facebook. It was fairly short. It was fairly short. But I basically said, come on, people. There's plenty to criticize this guy for. You don't need to be making stuff up to criticize the guy. Well, after I posted that, in Twitter, I saw somebody asking J.D. Hall if what J.D. had just said was aimed at me. And so I had to go click on this and then see what it's in response to, and so on and so forth. And that's when I eventually found the link to an article that was posted by Pulpit and Pen on the subject of this statement. And in essence saying, see, the Pope says the cross is a failure. This proves he's the Antichrist, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, so since there were people actually defending this understanding, I took the time to write a second, longer thing on Facebook, basically saying, come on, people, look at what Rome teaches, try to understand the concept of Eucharistic sacrifice. There is a way to understand this that is far more fair, and it just seems like for some people, being fair to a false teacher is irrelevant. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're Christians. Doesn't matter if it's a false teacher, you still have to be fair. That's just simple truthfulness. That's just being honest with the material. But for a lot of folks, no. That's for some folks, it's frightening. Some folks seem to think that if you call for, demand fairness in handling the claims and teachings of a false teacher, you yourself are compromising. To which I just go, where did you get your definition of truthfulness? We have to, there are all sorts of effective apologetic arguments that I can never utilize because I would be compromising my commitment to Christian truth to utilize them. They may be very effective. They may have a great emotional impact upon somebody. Someone might be making hay with those arguments over in such and such a place, but it's still simply not an option for a Christian believer if we have the proper commitments to the issue of truthfulness, integrity. If we claim to be following him who is the truth, we have to bend over backwards. Even if people don't do that to us. Even if people mistreat us, even if people are constantly saying untruths about us and misinterpreting every word we ever said. And of course, that happens to me all the time. It happens to J.D. Hall all the time, too. And so, for me, I am especially sensitive to it because I experience it all the time. I have people constantly say, well, you said such and such. I said, what? Oh, right here, you said such and so. And I look at it and say, how could you possibly rip that out of that context and read into it whatever you jolly well want to read it? I wasn't even talking about that. Yeah, but you said it. And I said, okay. So, if I am going to say that's an improper thing to do, then I really, really have to labor to not do that to other people. I'm a human being. I've done it inadvertently against my own proper commitments. And so I wrote this thing.